Thank you, Joe. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Reading Sunday worship service. My name is Rob Craig Coleman. I'm a member of the worship arts team. My pronouns are he and his. We choose to share our pronouns because we know people of all genders are holy, whole, and loved. Whoever you are, wherever you are from, whoever you love, whatever your faith tradition, you are welcome here. All are welcome here as we gather to create an understanding, welcoming, and family-friendly community where we may nurture and explore individual spirituality, work to build a committed and loving community, and to help heal the world. If this is your first time with us, we're so happy to have you join us. Please visit our webpage to learn more about our beloved community, and there you can connect with our staff. And for those with us in the sanctuary this morning, please come and speak to anyone connected with the service here on the chancel, at least, after the service during Fellowship Hall, in the Fellowship Hour in Fellowship Hall. If you're watching the service for the first time during its initial broadcast on at 10 a.m. on January 21st, please join us after the service for conversation via Zoom, hosted by Tom Model. If you're attending in person, please join us through these doors in Fellowship Hall following the service. Our worship theme this month is the liberating gift of love. Let us settle in and attend to being liberated by love. Love of ourselves, love of each other, love of all in the worldwide community of souls. And in that spirit, on behalf of all of us involved in this morning's worship service, thank you for joining us here in love this morning.
Thank you, Rob. Good morning. My name is Reverend Lara Solomon. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am the minister here at UUCR, and it is a privilege to serve this community and the world with you. Our opening words this week come from an article I read about the future of church. The author writes, "Churches who love their model more than their mission will die." Churches who love their model more than their mission will die. What I hear in this adage is that our model of church, our model of Unitarian Universalism can and should and must change. Our mission of love, our mission of liberation, our mission of beloved community can and should and will remain the same, even as our model changes, even as our church changes, even as our denomination changes. It is in that spirit that we gather this morning. Let us worship. As we light our chalice this morning with Unitarian Universalists all around the globe, I invite you to call into your heart the flame you kindle this morning, the flame of truth, of community, of commitment to love and justice. Kimberly Red, our new religious education coordinator, is lighting our chalice. Please join me in our chalice lighting words. In the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, we gather this day. May the flame we now kindle be to us a symbol of the holiness we seek. Thank you, Kimberly. Each week we recite our children's affirmation as a reminder of the most important elements of who we are. Anyone who would like to join me with our children's affirmation is invited to come forward. Some of our friends are already ready. Come on up, Jonah. Welcome, Ingrid. And is that Ellie? Perfect. Ellie's here as well. We are Unitarian Universalists, the Church of the Open Mind, the Loving Heart, and the Helping Hands. Thank you all. Please rise in body or in spirit. We will sing our opening hymn, number 360, Here We Have Gathered. We are going to have our time for all ages, so I invite our kids and Kimberly forward. But before we do, I'd like to invite Tay Rhodes as a representative of the Religious Education Committee to come forward. And if the members of the Religious Education Committee could stand up. Thank you. And Janae and Liz, can you two please come up towards the front? Thank you so much. You all know that we are so thrilled that we have hired Kimberly as our new religious education coordinator. All along this way, Liz and Janae have been behind the scenes working so very hard, filling a staff role as a volunteer position. Can we please offer them so much thanks and gratitude?
So as we transition now to having Kimberly here, we're so excited to have her, but I really wanted to, and the whole RE committee really wanted to recognize and thank Janae and Liz because they really held it together, and I've been so impressed with our whole RE committee and our whole RE program, so thank you very much on behalf of the whole committee.
I need to say something. as someone whose children have long passed through, this was the coolest opportunity to get to know people I hadn't known. And I feel like I have all these new friends and all these wonderful people whose lives have deeper meaning for me. And I got to know the kids too. So I will say that as someone who's been a lifetime person hanging out in the choir, this was so cool. And if you ever have the opportunity to enter a new group, I really encourage you to. My life here is richer, definitely.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Janae. A beautiful endorsement to volunteer in religious education. Can our kids come forward? We have a story, and Rob, we have a prop that we need over here as well. Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. So in worship today, we are talking about how important things change over time and how the most important things stay the same even when everything around them changes. We're going to talk about how Unitarian Universalism is changing and how what is most important about our faith still stays the same.
So when I think about things changing, I often think about technology. Technology is something that I've seen change a bunch of times already over my lifetime. Have you noticed it in your lifetime change? Yeah? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So as I was thinking about technology, I was able to think of some pretty cool technology fossils. Reverend Laura, can you show us pictures of the first set of fossils? So these are some examples. Do you all know what these are? Yes? Anybody know what this is over here? Yeah, it's a cassette tape. We probably know this one. What about this one? Yeah? What is it? Yep, close, a CD. And we know this one. It's not a remote. Yeah?
It's a phone.
It's not a phone. Anybody else? iPod. It's an iPod. Yes. So this type of technology changed, but something really important stayed the same. What do you all think stayed the same? All these things, what do? They play. What all? Yes, all these stay the same because they all play music.
Great, so here's our next example. Do you know what this first one is? What is that? Black. It's black, it is black. Yep, does anybody know what that was for? How about this second one? What is that? That's for a DVD, and the last one is Netflix. Exactly. It is a VCR, it's a tape, exactly. So what do all of these things have in common? They all played? No. Not music. What do you think, Jonah?
Video. They all played videos.
They all played videos, exactly. They all played videos. So the technology changed, but our ability to play videos stayed the same.
All right, we have one more set coming. How about this one? Do we know what that is? Anybody? You? Yeah? Jonah? Anyone?
It's the save icon. Is it the save icon? Is
Yes.
that what that is?
So
Yeah.
close. Yes. All right. We can shout it out. What is this?
Hard floppy.
It's a floppy disk. How about
Hard floppy.
hard floppy? Ooh, it looks like a plug. That's really close. Well, it's not a plug. Oh, you had it. Yeah, it's called a thumb drive, yes. And then now we use these. Cloud, Google Docs, Google Drive. So these changed over time, but what stayed the same? Nothing? Yes? Well, they all save files, documents and files. They all do that same thing, and that's what stayed the same. So what's most important stays the same, but the way we do it has changed a lot.
So in Unitarian Universalism, we have been using the 7 or 8 principles as our technology for our faith since 1985. That's a long time ago. That's when people made the switch from cassette tapes to CDs. And now a really wonderful team of leaders has come out with new technology for our faith. This technology, instead of principles, has 7 values. They are pluralism, interdependence, equity, transformation, justice, and generosity. And right in the center is love. And we have a visual for this too. I love that love is in the middle because it is what is most important. Love is what holds all of our values together and what guides us. And now it's up to us to figure out how to use this new technology, these new values that are going to be the way that we can live our UU faith in the world. There's a lot to think about here, and we know that change is hard. Anytime new technology comes out, it takes us all a while to adjust and get used to it. But we also know that as we commit to moving forward together in love, we can change and change again and again, and what we love most will stay the same. Thank you all for listening this morning. Please join me in singing our children to class. We take time during our service to light our candles of community, peace, and justice. We light our red candle of community to signify our interconnection. Wherever you are in time or space, here in the sanctuary or joining us virtually, we light this candle holding you in love. As we light this candle today, I invite you to speak aloud the name or names of people who are on your mind or heart to bring them fully into this space. We light our blue candle of peace for all the places worldwide where people live with the threat of war and violence. Today, as with all of our Sundays this year, we spend a moment reflecting on the ongoing impact of war, the ways it continues to harm so many people around the world, in Ukraine, in Israel, in Palestine, in Gaza, in all of the surrounding areas, and the ways that violence impacts each of us indirectly. May all beings everywhere know peace. We light our yellow candle of justice. You will be hearing from me and your board president, Sherry Cook, in the next few days via email because our Black Lives Matter banner was stolen again. You may remember that it was stolen over the summer, the weekend of Juneteenth, and it was stolen last weekend, Martin Luther King weekend. As people of faith, people committed to the work of anti-racism, as people committed to promoting the work of love and justice in our community, we know that this timing was not accidental. Our faith with love at the center calls us to a faithful response, a response of solidarity with the people most impacted by racism, a response that calls us all to greater empowered action, a response that engages the larger community because the harm of our stolen banner impacts not only us, but is emblematic of a larger problem in Reading, in Massachusetts, in our country. We are called to respond thoughtfully, with careful considerations of all of the implications of our potential actions. So you will see an email from Sherry and I later this week, and you will be invited to some community events, both internally for us as a church and inviting the broader Reading community into this conversation. May we use this opportunity to model who we are, who we aspire to be. May we use this opportunity to demonstrate our commitment to safety, to freedom, and to community. We pray that all people everywhere live their lives in freedom and that we each do our part in the work for justice and liberation for all in our global community. As we recommit ourselves to this work, may we each voice our commitment by saying amen. For our prayer today, I invite us into a time of silence, that we may each hear the prayers of our own hearts. Amen. If you would like to light a silent candle, you are invited to come forward now. Our first reading today is titled Litany for Becoming. When I raise my hands, you will voice the response, which is printed in your order of service. You will say, "This is loving and being loved." To become is a lifelong process. Nothing is constant, not even the self. We must then have the courage to listen to the truth of our own lives, to the wisdom that comes from within, responding without resistance or need to control, but with welcome and curiosity. This lifelong labor cannot be carried out alone. It requires help from friends and lovers and family and creaturely companions who bear witness to what makes us come alive. This is loving and being loved.
Telling stories, sharing in memories, giving thanks for relationships, understandings, and experiences past that have shaped us to this day. This is loving and
Celebrating new beginnings that excite, holding risks together, leaning into unknowns with the promises of support and companionship. This is loving and being loved.
Listening to the future calling uniquely to each of us in the midst of all of life's noise. Helping one another find our place in the shared labor of collective life, supporting each other in what it is the world's ache is asking from us.
This is loving and being loved. To say for the first time, this is who I am. This is the truth of my body. This is what I know about myself. This is my name, and this is where my path is leading me. And to have it heard, have it received, have it affirmed, and then to say it again and again as we change and as the world changes, and to have each proclamation greeted with an open-armed embrace. This is loving and being loved.
There is no me without you. We shape one another. The sacred that birthed us weaves our lives together so that we can only find ourselves through shared becomings. For my journeys and all its winding ways, for yours. For all the saints who labored for what is, all the kin whose lives made ours possible, for all those yet to come for whom living our truths today will mean breaking possibilities open for them tomorrow. We pause, we give thanks, we acknowledge.
This is loving and being loved.
It's not in the order of service, but this morning it's Molly Smith and Chelsea Grenwell. They will be singing Ave Maria.
Ave Maria, Ave
Thank you, Molly. Thank you, Chelsea. We are going to start by reading together our 7 Unitarian Universalist principles in the form they have been written since 1985. You can find these principles in the front of your gray hymnal. Right after the preface, there is a page that starts with, "We, the member congregations." Have we found that? Fantastic. Let's open to that page and read our 7 principles as they are currently written, starting with those words. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience, and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. Thank you. So those are our current 7 principles as they have been written in the bylaws of our denomination since 1985. I was thinking about why I felt so called to preach on Article 2, and I was initially a little confused. After all, I preached on Article 2 and the proposed changes last year. Then I thought, wait, did I preach on Article 2 and the proposed changes last year? I remembered writing a sermon about it. I remembered drawing out that graphic and printing a copy of the proposed changes. I remember wishing we had had more conversation about these changes because they're kind of a big deal. But here's the thing. Does anyone remember the sermon I preached on Article 2 last year? Please be honest. No. We've got 1. 2, we've got 2. All right, perfect. Well, even I didn't remember that sermon because I preached that sermon on February 5th, which just happened to be the day that a pipe burst in the atrium. Does anyone remember the pipe bursting in the atrium? Yep, absolutely, that I absolutely remember. So as I thought about preaching about these changes this year, this actually felt like the perfect analogy. So often, the details of church get in the way of the doing of church, the being of church, the living of church. The burst pipes, the long committee meetings, the interpersonal conflict, and it can get in the way of the way we live our mission, the way we embody who we are as Unitarian Universalists and our understanding of who we are becoming and who we want to be in the world. The details of who is teaching RE this week or whether we have enough tea lights, it can all get in the way of us seeing ourselves in the larger container of Unitarian Universalism. Not only that, but it can get in the way of seeing ourselves in the larger container of the Reading community, the larger container of religion in the United States today, and the landscape of justice work in the country and the world. It seems strange that we can use our association's bylaws to give us that perspective and situate us in the world in the ways we need, but I believe that we can. Because this section of our bylaws, Article 2, is supposed to remind us of who we are and who we are becoming. Of course, that's different than it was in 1985. or at least it should be. For context, Article 2 was initially written in 1961 when the Unitarians and Universalists merged and joined forces. The original 1961 principles were not all that different from the ones we have today, although the wording of some of those statements would surely make many of us balk. Phrases like respecting the dignity of man and men of goodwill in every land, and lots of references to God and brotherhood. After about 20 years, the Unitarian Universalist Women's Federation, spurred by the feminists of the 80s, began to push for updating this language to reflect the full humanity of women. In 1985 and 1986, it takes a 2-year vote to change our bylaws. The changes were made that brought us to where our principles are today. Significant changes were made in restructuring Article 2, adding sections and additional language around the sources of our faith in particular. According to our bylaws, we will revisit Article 2 every 15 years, which we have kind of done in a broad sense of the term revisit. But in that revisiting, only small changes have been made. For example, a recent change moved the phrase prophetic words and deeds of women and men to prophetic words and deeds of people, to represent our changing understanding and inclusivity of people of all genders. And some changes have been rejected. In 2009, several proposed changes were recommended, such as changing the phrase respect for the interdependent web to reverence for the interdependent web, or changing the phrase individual freedom of belief to congregational freedom. These recommendations did not pass the initial vote. And now here we are in 2024, and things have changed. Our association has grown in its understanding of systemic oppression, such as racism, ableism, and heteronormative beliefs. With these understandings, our faith calls us to the work we have always done, but with new, clearer framing that articulates this vision more explicitly, leading our faith into a more liberatory future. The Article 2 study report says, new occasions teach new duties. And so we are called to examine our principles and purposes to see what is missing, what is no longer important, and whether the language communicates our core values to the current time. In other words, we don't want to be using a cassette tape in an MP3 world. For some of us, the principles have been foundational in the way we live our lives, in how we understand the work we are called to do, and in our understanding of Unitarian Universalism. And some of us might say, oh yeah, the principles. I think there's like 5 or 9 or something. Regardless of your relationship with our principles as they are currently written, this proposed revision of Article 2 is an important way we are living our faith tradition and moving it into the future our faith asks of us. In a while, Rob and I will read aloud part of the proposed revision. These visions were proposed and discussed at General Assembly, the business meeting of the Unitarian Universalist Association, in June of 2023, and will be voted on for the final time in June of this year. We are getting close to having new technology at the center of our faith. Will it change who we are in our day-to-day operations? Absolutely not. At least not quickly. Just as the cassette tape and the CD and the MP3 player all served the same purpose of playing music, this new technology is simply a new way for us to engage the principles we know to be at the center of our faith. The article I quoted in the beginning of worship said, "Churches that love their model more than their mission will die." To cling tightly to our model, whether that model is our 7 principles or the way we do the work of the church, is to continue using floppy disks in a cloud-based world. Your board and staff and leadership are having conversations and taking concrete steps in the ways we think about the work of the church here at UUCR. Given the schedules and lives of the average congregant now, how do we best engage people in both the work of the church and in spiritual nourishment? The article I referenced is clear that the gathered church is here to stay. These changes in technology will not make church a thing we do separately or alone. That does not keep the mission of church intact because church is communal. The question I wrestle with most these days is, how do we now, in this post-pandemic, late-stage capitalist country with rising fascism and catastrophic climate change, how do we now engage and challenge and empower congregants to do the work of love in our congregation and beyond? How do we engage and challenge and empower congregants to do the work of love in our congregation and beyond? And yes, this is the question in my head, but it is also my question for you. How will you engage and challenge and empower yourself and others to do the work of love in our congregation and beyond? Our mission is and will remain love that empowers and love that frees. Our mission is and will remain a love powerful enough to transform ourselves and thereby the world. May we be the gathered church that transforms its model in service of its mission. Amen. I'm going to invite Rob forward once more to help me read the proposed Article 2 revisions. On the front of your order of service, you will see the visual proposed by the Article 2 Study Commission of our values and covenant. The visual shows a chalice with the word love written over the flame at the center of 6 outstretched arms that create a circle around each of the core values and form what is supposed to be a 6-petal flower shape. The values and covenant read,
As Unitarian Universalist, we covenant congregation to congregation and through our association to support and assist one another in our ministries. We draw from our heritages of freedom, reason, hope, and courage, building on the foundation of love.
Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. Inseparable from one another, these shared values are
Interdependence. We honor the interdependent web of all existence. We covenant to cherish Earth and all beings by creating and nurturing relationships of care and respect. And reverence, we acknowledge our place in the great web of life, and we work to repair harm and damaged relationships.
pluralism. We celebrate that we are all sacred beings diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect.
Justice. We work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all thrive. We covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systematic oppression. We support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions.
Transformation. We adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Openness to change is fundamental to our Unitarian and Universalist heritages, never complete and never perfect.
Generosity. We cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality.
Equity. We declare that every person has the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities.
The inspirations part of Article 2 was previously known as our 6 sources, the places from which Unitarian Universalists draw wisdom, knowledge, and inspiration. The proposed version of Unitarian Universalism's inspirations is as follows. As Unitarian Universalists, we use and are inspired by sacred and secular understandings that help us to live into our values. We respect the histories, contexts, and cultures in which they were created and are currently practiced. These sources ground us and sustain us in ordinary, difficult, and joyous times. Grateful for the religious ancestries we inherit and the diversity which enriches our faith. We are called to ever deepen and expand our wisdom.
We hold love at our center. May it be so, and may we make it so.
Each Sunday, UUCR gives away half of the money received in the collection plate to a nonprofit organization that shares our UU values. It's a simple yet powerful way for each of us to help heal the world by learning about and supporting the good works of charitable organizations and becoming more involved in our community. Our Share the Plate recipient for the month of January is Students of Color and Allies for Equity, Justice, and Inclusion. SACA is a student group at Reading Memorial High School seeking to create awareness, educate on significant issues, and create an understanding of how students of color may feel on a daily basis. Some of their current projects include planning field trips in the greater Boston area to learn about Black history and the Civil Rights Movement, raising funds to provide scholarships for students to attend a leadership program this summer, collaborating with other town organizations to put on the annual Juneteenth campaign celebration, advocating for the METCO program, petitioning the school committee to change the name of the Joshua Eaton School in light of the property's connection to the slave trade during the colonial era. As Molly and Chelsea return to the mic and Joe returns to the keyboards where they will be sharing with us Skyboat Home, I ask that you please give generously to our Share the Plate offering to support both SACA and the mission of UUCR.
Sing me a song of a lass that is gone. Say, could that lass be on? of soul, she sailed on a day over the sea to sky. Give me again all that was there. Give me the sun that shone. Give me the eyes, give me the soul. Give me the last that's gone. Sing me a song of a last that is gone. Say, could that last be I, be I? Mary of soul, she sailed on a day over the sea to sky, to sky. Billow and breeze and winds and seas, mountains and rain and sun, all that was good, all that was fair, all that was me is gone. Sing me a song of a last that is gone. Say, could that last be I? Mary of soul, she sailed on a day over the sea, over the sea, over the sea to sky. Sing me a song of a last that is gone over the sea to sky.
Thank you, Molly, Chelsea, and Joe. That was beautiful. I am Melissa Martin, your Member Services and Volunteer Coordinator, and my pronouns are she and her. I have a lot to share today, but you can find the details in our church news or come see me at social hour. In our congregational life this week, our Buddhist meditation returns tomorrow, and lay leaders are reminded that our quarterly program council meeting is this Wednesday at 7 p.m. Next Sunday, we'll have a spirituality drop-in after social hour. And speaking of small groups, if you signed up for a chalice circle, they begin this week as well. Participants will receive a Google group invitation where they'll find all of the details and connect with their leaders and other participants. Thank you, Ann Garrett, Pam Amadon, and Kitty Craig Coman for leading our chalice circles and holding space for this ministry. Today, we had previously scheduled our book discussion for the UUA's Common Read on Repentance and Repair. We have to reschedule for this afternoon, so if you're planning on attending, look for an email with a rescheduled time. Please see me at the book fair in the atrium right after service. We have 40-something titles, including recommendations from Reverend Laura. I also look forward to meeting new friends who wish to participate and are welcome. And finally, you may have read in our church news this week, we're happy to announce news about the sharing of joys and concerns that allows people at church to know one another better, spread happiness, and offer comfort when needed. When people come together to celebrate and support each other, it strengthens relationships and it builds community. Mark Tates and Sherry Cook have been working together to explore ways in which we can share joys and concerns that would be similar to the in-service offering that we had done years ago as part of our in-service sharing that is no longer accommodated by our hybrid services structure or our live broadcasting realities. For the next several weeks, Mark and our Zoom coffee hour host will facilitate the sharing of joys and concerns immediately following services. Those here in the sanctuary who are interested in participating should remain in the sanctuary and maybe move closer to the chancel. We ask others to be respectful and leave quietly as we're going to begin the sharing as soon as our broadcast ends. Similarly, our sharing of joys and sorrows among our online will take place as soon as the Zoom social hour begins. We hope that you find this opportunity to be in community together meaningful. And please remember that Reverend Laura and our pastoral care team are always available to offer pastoral support to members of our community facing challenges in their lives. Thank you to Mark and to our Zoom Social Hour host, Tom Model, as well as our volunteers for today, and thank you all for being a vital part of our congregational life. Our closing hymn this morning is number 1017, Building a New Way, and we're going to sing verses 1, 2, and 4. Please rise in body or in spirit. Please join me in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. May we go out into the world, allowing our mission of love to be loud, ringing out past models and methods, reaching out past the ways we've always done it to the place where love is living, the place where the people are, where the creativity, energy, and innovation lives. We are going to sing a benediction response, number 1058 in your hymnal, Be Ours a Religion.